Welcome to Cyber Threat Intel, your go-to source for the latest updates, news, and insights on cyber threats. Our goal is to arm you with the knowledge to protect yourself in the digital age, whether you're a cybersecurity professional or just curious about the threats lurking in the digital shadows. Make sure to subscribe now on YouTube or your favorite podcast listening platform to join us on the front lines of cybersecurity, because in the world of cyber threats, knowledge is power. Welcome. This is Cyber Threat Intel. I'm your host, John Good. This is episode number 57. And it's Wednesday, June 26, 2024. If you need to grab a snack or a drink before we get into the show, make sure that you do that. And also, if this is the first time that you're checking out the show, glad to see you here. And then if you're returning from another episode or some other content, glad to see you returning. Also remember that if you go to cyberthreatintel.com, again, cyberthreatintel.com, you can find all the articles that we discuss in this episode as well as other episodes. And you can find some other articles that we put in there that we didn't have time to get to in the show as well. So again, cyberthreatintel.com, and you can find all that information there. So with that being said, let's go ahead and flip on over my screen and hop into the content. All right, so first article here, Julian Assange to plead guilty, but is going home after long extradition fight. WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange has agreed to plead guilty to a single charge, ending a long extradition battle with the United States government. Assange will reportedly avoid future jail time and be allowed to return to his home country of Australia. In a court filing in Saipan, the U.S. government said, "We appreciate the court accommodating these plea and sentencing proceedings on a single day at the joint request of the parties in light of the defendant's opposition to traveling to the continental United States to enter his guilty plea and the proximity of this federal U.S. District Court to the defendant's country of citizenship, Australia, to which we expect he will return at the conclusion of the proceedings." There's another quote here. It says, "We anticipate the defendant will plead guilty to the charge of the information of conspiring to unlawfully obtain and disseminate classified information relating to the national defense of the United States in violation of 18 U.S.C. 793 section G, and to be sentenced by the court for that offense," the U.S. said. So if you're not familiar with Julian Assange, he was basically the main person for a website called WikiLeaks, where information is submitted from across the world, from different governments or from all these different sources, and basically this website leaks them. And so he was the person that was running it. Now, Assange was flying to Saipan today, according to his wife, Stella Assange. And this is a quote: "Saipan is a remote U.S. overseas territory. He'll be entering the United States. Julian won't be safe until he lands in Australia," she wrote. So the U.S. unsealed a 2018 indictment against Assange in 2019, right after British police arrested him on behalf of U.S. authorities. Assange went into hiding in the Ecuadorian embassy in London in 2012, but the Ecuadorian government revoked his asylum after 7 years. And so this is where he had hung out for a while after he was starting to get charged with different things. The New York Times reported that Assange is expected to be sentenced to about 5 years, the equivalent of the time he has already served in Britain. The New York Times cited a law enforcement official who's familiar with the terms of the deal. So this is where it kind of gets back into what originally happened, how he found himself in this situation. So Assange was charged with encouraging and assisting Manning, who was in the U.S. military, and in obtaining around 750,000 classified or sensitive documents, one of the largest leaks of state secrets in U.S. history. So we're not going to get into the details specifically of how that unfolded and everything, but definitely go check that out if you're interested in understanding more about that. But essentially what happened was Manning was in the military, provided a ton of classified documentation to Assange, which ended up getting leaked on WikiLeaks. Now, this original charge carried out a maximum penalty of 175 years in prison. In 2021, a British judge rejected the U.S. government's request to extradite Assange, saying that he would be a greater risk of suicide in the American prison system. The U.S. won an appeal of that ruling, but legal proceedings continued. In March 2024, Assange was granted another reprieve, by the High Court in London. So again, all this WikiLeaks stuff, news around it, around Assange, it's fairly interesting how this is kind of played out, what happened previously on WikiLeaks, what different scenarios that WikiLeaks and Assange have been involved in or been connected to. So definitely go check those out if you're interested. But one of the important things, especially from a cybersecurity aspect or information security aspect, is this whole idea of insider threat. So when we're talking about insider threat, what do people have access to? Is it legitimate access? How often is the access reviewed? You have to think about all these things when you are going through permissions, checking out the permission hierarchy, the scheme that you have in place, how users inherit permissions. Sometimes if you nest groups within other groups, they will inherit permissions. So you have to be careful that you're not kind of at that parent level of groups and you're adding permissions that those lower level child groups shouldn't have because they'll inherit them, obviously. So there's a lot to unpack with this particular situation or these kinds of things that are related to this. But definitely, if you're not aware of any of the WikiLeaks stuff, I highly recommend going to research it a little bit more so you can understand kind of how this has evolved over the last several years. Moving on here, next article, Meta's virtual reality headset vulnerable to ransomware attacks, says the researcher. Researcher Harash, I'm not sure how to say that name, Ganesan, took claims on Reddit that it's almost impossible to install malware on Quest 3 virtual reality or VR as a personal challenge to explore emerging threat surfaces. He decided to do so without enabling developer mode. Simply Googling told him Meta was using a restricted version of Android open source project AOSP. It means I can install any APKs just like installing apps on your Android phone, he said. More Googling this time with YouTube unearthed a methodology using an app from Meta's App Lab, which gives access to native Android's file manager. I use this method to install COVID lock ransomware on my headset, he explained. This is quite interesting. And this quote here, this research is not about a vulnerability in MetaQuest 3, rather about an attack surface which allows people to sideload malware without developer options, he told Security Week. Although he hasn't published technical details of the method, he believes it would not be difficult for bad actors to replicate the process. Nevertheless, it means that an attacker could use social engineering to trick a user into installing a malicious app into Quest and make that app a device admin without enabling developer mode. I think that's an important aspect of this because when we're thinking about attack methods and attack vectors, and we think about okay, well, this has this certain dependency or these dependencies in order to operate. So if the user has to go in and enable developer mode, that might draw some concern even from the least technically savvy person out there because they are going to see, okay, this is going to enable developer mode. Well, what does that do? That doesn't seem like something that I need or that I should be doing. And just anytime that there are these kind of roadblock dependencies in place, it certainly adds another barrier or a layer that a hacker or attacker has to get through, somebody malicious. Not having to do that, kind of reducing those extra steps, especially for some user that you're going to social engineer, certainly makes it significantly easier and less steps that just have to be accomplished for somebody to take over a device. So very interesting, especially with these headsets. The more that these are going to be mainstream in the general population, if we're in 10 years, if we're all on these headsets and we're doing everything virtually, and it's a concern, right? There's a lot of different things that can be gleaned by that, especially because I think a lot of these have cameras in them to the front side. Like I know the Apple headset has cameras in it to help kind of see, what's in front of you and everything like that. So what if you could hack a headset and then get access to those cameras, see what people are doing with the headset, just watch where they're going. There's all kinds of implications to being able to hack those devices. Again, right now, they're pretty expensive. I'm not sure what this one in particular goes for, but I know the Apple one is several thousands of dollars, so not cheap by any means. So we'll see. Next article, new Medusa malware variants target Android users in 7 countries. Medusa banking Trojan for Android has reemerged after almost a year of keeping a lower profile in campaigns targeting France, Italy, and the United States, Canada, Spain, the United Kingdom, and Turkey.
No!
The new activity has been tracked since May and relies on more compact variants that require fewer permissions and comes with fresh features in an attempt to initiate transactions directly from the compromised device. Again, reducing the requirements of malware is a dangerous thing for the rest of us. Also known as TangoBot, Medusa Banking Trojan is an Android malware as a service MAAS operation discovered in 2020. The malware provides key logging, screen controls, and SMS manipulation. Malware as a service, ransomware as a service, those are newer terms that are definitely more widespread today than they were several years ago. It's making it easier for attackers to do some of this stuff without necessarily having the technical acumen needed to create it. They can just leverage other services or other operations to carry out their bidding. It's dangerous, bad for us. Recent campaigns were discovered by the threat intelligence team at online fraud management company Cleafy, who says the malware variants are lighter, need fewer permissions on the device, and include full screen overlaying and screenshot capturing. So again, it's the whole idea of obstacles in place. If you have more obstacles or security mechanisms that attackers have to get through, then it's significantly harder for them to breach that device, to compromise that device. They're going to go after low-hanging fruit almost always because it's just easier. Why put in effort if you don't have to? I guess that's a life lesson, right? Yeah. First evidence of recent Medusa variants is from July 2023, the researchers say. Cleafy observed them in campaigns that rely on SMS phishing, so smishing, to sideload the malware through dropper applications. So essentially get some applications on there and have those carry out your bidding. Recent dropper apps using the attacks include a fake Chrome browser, a 5G connectivity app, and a fake streaming app called 4K Sports. And they show that in this diagram here. If you're listening to the podcast, make sure to check out the article. Cleafy comments that all campaigns and botnets are handled by Medusa's central infrastructure, which dynamically fetches the URLs for the command and control C2 server from public social media profiles. So that's how they're maintaining the persistence. That's how they are getting the commands out there and basically giving instructions of what needs to happen from those bots. The authors of Medusa malware have opted to reduce its footprint on compromised devices. Again, now requesting only a small set of permissions, but still requires Android's accessibility services. So reducing that requirement, but there's always some level that you have to have. You need something from that system to be present for the malware or whatever to actually be able to work. Cleafy's analysis showed the malware's authors removed 17 commands from the previous version of the malware and added 5 new ones. So here's the 5 that they list. Destroyo to uninstall a specific application. Perm draw over, requesting draw over permissions. Set overlay, set a black screen overlay. Take screen, take a screenshot. And update sec, update user secret. So this set overlay, this is an interesting one. So this is the set a black screen overlay. And what we've seen in different scenarios with different malware is this idea of making the screen black so it appears that it's off for a user. So when they hold it up, the screen is not going to be backlit or anything like that. And then that way, it's just a black screen as far as they're concerned, but you're still doing things behind the scenes. That's where it gets dangerous because user will completely not know that something is going on. They'll just see a black screen. They'll say, oh, my device is dead, or my device is off or whatever, and I'll just deal with it later or whatever. Or it's just sitting up on a desktop or on a desk, and you're just doing whatever you need to do in the background as a malicious attacker, and they are not going to be alerted because the screen is not going to be on. So that's definitely a bad one for sure. All right, let's keep moving here. Next article, plugins on WordPress.org, backdoored in supply chain attack. Threat actor modified the source code of at least 5 plugins hosted on WordPress.org to include malicious PHP scripts that create new accounts with administrative privileges on websites that are running them. The attack was discovered by the WordPress threat intelligence team yesterday, but the malicious injections appear to have occurred towards the end of last week between June 21st and June 22nd. As soon as WordPress discovered the breach, the company notified the plugin developers, which resulted in patches being released yesterday for most of the products. So these are the different plugins. It's 5 different ones: Social Warfare, Blaze Widget, Wrapper Link Element, Contact Form 7 multi-step add-on, and Simply Show Hooks. And so check out the article if you need the version numbers. The malicious code in the affected plugins attempts to create new admin accounts and inject SEO spam into the compromised website. So even just normal best practice for accounts, you should be reviewing them, reviewing who has accounts, what kind of accounts exist, if there's new accounts, all those things on any website, on any service that you have, not just with WordPress, but certainly with WordPress especially. In addition, it appears the threat actor also injected malicious JavaScript into the footer of the websites that appears to add SEO spam throughout the website. So that was that SEO part. So one of those things, by doing that, certainly is that it makes it more discoverable if you have certain SEO in there, and you can just search for that on a Google website. You can just go to Google and search for whatever the tag is or whatever that you're looking for, and then you can easily find the compromised websites if you're the attacker. So that's why that is dangerous. SEO in itself is not dangerous, right? In general, I would say, but certainly that is a mechanism for these attackers to be able to easily go find their victims. Website owners that notice such accounts or traffic to the attacker's IP address should perform a complete malware scan. So the IP address they give is 94.156.79.8. And then, of course, you should always update the plugin, just like any good software update. If there's an update, go ahead and update it. Make sure that you get the latest and greatest so that you're not vulnerable anymore. Next article, miscreant touts stolen Neiman Marcus customer info for $150,000. Customer information said to have been stolen from Neiman Marcus Snowflake's instance. Marcus's Snowflake instance has been put up for sale on the dark web for $150,000. So here's Snowflake coming back again. Between April and May, an intruder accessed 64,472 shoppers' names, contact information, dates of birth, and Neiman Marcus or Bergdorf Goodman gift card numbers, but not the gift card pins, which is what you actually need to take the cash off of it, according to a privacy breach notification submitted to the Maine Attorney General in the U.S. by the luxury retailer. Neiman Marcus spokesperson declined to answer whether it had turned on multi-factor authentication MFA for the database, an oversight common among victims of recent raid of Snowflake cloud accounts, though did confirm to El Reg the unnamed platform was indeed Snowflake. So yeah, if you haven't been following the Snowflake stuff, we've talked about it a bunch on this show, and I'm sure it's probably going to continue to come up in the near future especially. But massive situation where a lot of customer instances or customer accounts were breached, but a lot of it tying back to not having multi-factor authentication enabled on their accounts. So their user accounts to log in. That's a best practice that, frankly, should be enabled by default by every service provider these days. but it was not, and a lot of people just opted to not enable it on their accounts. According to Spider's dark web souk listing, the stolen data includes names, addresses, phone numbers, the last 4 digits of customer social security numbers, plus 50 million customer email addresses with IP addresses, 12 million gift card numbers, and 6 billion rows of customer shopping records, employee data, store information, presumably that was lifted from NMG's Snowflake account. So there's a discrepancy as far as the data or the amount of data that appears to be taken. But nonetheless, that's not a good situation when you have data that is taken that clearly was not in an encrypted format. It was clearly unencrypted because they were just able to take it and apparently, decipher what exactly it was. So that is, always a dangerous thing when there's data breaches. We talk about data breaches, I feel like, every day on this show because there's almost always some kind of data breach that happens. So keep that in mind if you're working in cybersecurity, that data breaches happen all the time. You are not immune to a data breach. It could totally happen to you. It might have already happened to you. So do the best practices for security. Continue to evolve your security program. That's the only way that you can help reduce the likelihood that you're going to be breached. You'll never completely get rid of that risk, but certainly if you can do the things that you need to do and that you should do, you'll make it a lot harder for attackers, and you won't be that low-hanging fruit that they're more likely to go after. So very, very important. With that being said, that's the last article for today. Again, this is Cyber Threat Intel. I'm your host, John Good. This is episode number 57. It's Wednesday, June 26, 2024. If you want to see all the articles that we covered in this episode or other episodes, head on over to cyberthreatintel.com. Again, cyberthreatintel.com, and you can find all that information there. And with that being said, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up for today, and I'll see you in the next one. See you later. Are you tired of overpaying for cybersecurity training? Are you interested in training from industry professionals? Are you looking for cybersecurity career services? If you answered yes to any of those questions, then cybertrainingpro.com is the perfect platform for you. At Cyber Training Pro, we're a one-stop shop for all your cybersecurity needs. We can train you for industry certifications or just improve your overall knowledge and skills in a certain area. Unlike other platforms, we don't stop there. We can also coach you throughout your career, practice your interview skills, or create a high-performing resume with our career services. CybertrainingPro.com isn't just another training platform. Students get exclusive access to our private community where we go beyond training courses to provide additional content, tips and tricks, and engagement with both other students and staff. Look, by the year 2025, there could be as many as 3.5 million job openings in cybersecurity. With so much opportunity, why not maximize your career potential with a platform that cares about your success? Come join us at cybertrainingpro.com and start building your future today.